After a slew of failed efforts to find an upgrade with a special teams coach and a botched defensive coordinator hire with Joe Barry, there were real questions about Matt LaFleur's ability to put together a staff. But for the second cycle in a row, he seems to have nailed the process of hiring a new defensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever you get podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals joins us to talk about Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis, all kinds of good stuff coming up here. But the process that led to the Packers hiring Jonathan Gannon needs a bit of a microscope, because early in Matt LaFleur's tenure, he put together a quality staff on offense, no doubt. Adam Stenavich with the offensive line. Nathaniel Hackett got himself a head coaching job off of being a part of this offense. And the 2020 team in particular was outstanding offensively. But Sean Menenga, Maurice Drayton, Rich Bisaccia, the special teams coaching hires left plenty to be desired. And that was, you hire Menenga for whatever, reasons Darren Rizzi didn't take the job. Rob Bukowski was adamant on radio the other day that it was not about money, that he didn't want to shovel snow, he didn't want to be in the cold. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. They fired Menenga. They internally promoted. Then that was a disaster, and they had to recalibrate everything. They bring in Rich Bisaccia. That has not worked either, and we'll see, if he ends up staying the Packers special teams coach. There's some speculation that he's going to be safe. Well, at least for now, we'll see where this goes from here. But in 2023, when the Packers went through the process of hiring Jeff Hafley, ultimately landing on a very good coach. So even if they had gone through a bad process, they landed on a good outcome. But to me, the process is vital here. When you look at some of the other candidates that they hired, that they interviewed, Bobby Babich was one of the finalists. He ends up getting promoted in Buffalo to the defensive coordinator job. Now he's out of work. Could he join Green Bay's staff? Something to keep an eye on here. I think the same is true of Zach Orr, who's now a candidate to potentially replace Jesse Minter in LA, but he was reportedly a finalist as well, and he got promoted in Baltimore. So those are two guys on your short list that two other excellent, winning, Super Bowl competing organizations thought were good enough to get their defensive coordinator job when they needed one. So, okay, that's pretty good. And then Jeff Hafley turned out to be a pretty damn good coach. You have Denard Wilson, who was someone who got an opportunity in Tennessee. Now gets an opportunity with the Giants, a defensive coordinator. So your pool of candidates was strong. Like, think about the pool of candidates when the Packers hired Matt LaFleur. There were some good candidates in there. Josh McDaniels. That was who Aaron Rodgers wanted, by the way. Brian Flores. Dan Campbell. They land on Matt LaFleur. But in that pool was Ron Rivera, Mike Munchak. It was not the most inspiring group of candidates. They got lucky that they landed on Matt LaFleur, who's a very good football coach. Now this time around, in this cycle, Christian Parker. Well, he's the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator now. Durante Jones, he's now the Washington Commanders defensive coordinator. Al Harris got multiple interviews in this cycle, has yet to get a job, doesn't mean he won't get a job. And Jonathan Gannon, who ultimately gets the Packers job. So once again, you're looking at a pool of candidates that was very strong. You hope when you get a pool of candidates that's very strong, you pick one of the good ones. It doesn't mean all of them are going to be good. Not all of the defensive coordinators who got jobs are going to be good. I would rather have Jeff Hafley than Zach Orr. I would rather have Jeff Hafley than Bobby Babich. But those guys are thought of as defensive coordinators by the league, or at least they were when the Packers went through that process. Things can change. But that seems like a much better process than what happened with the special teams coordinators, for example. And so when you look at the job of being a head coach, it's not just to call good plays. It's not just to have good offense. It's not just to develop players. You have to build the best staff that you can. This is something Sean McVay has been superlative at over the course of his tenure in LA. And he's had issues on special teams. Kyle Shanahan has put together really good staffs. He's had issues on special teams. I think special teams is a really hard thing to get right. I think it is something that organizationally you have to care about in a way that the Packers, frankly, don't. That's something Justice Mosqueda talked about when he came on a couple weeks ago, months ago now. Talk about the failings or lack thereof of Rich Bisaccia. You still need to get it right. Like they ultimately, yes, they engaged in good process when they hired Jeff Hafley, but they hired a very good coach. That's all that matters. So did they go through a good process here to find Jonathan Gannon? Yes. Does that mean Jonathan Gannon's going to be awesome? We don't know. We don't. And, you know, there's ripple effects to all of this, right? Like Christian Parker goes from Philly now to Dallas. Well, one of the coaches that Jonathan Gannon reportedly wanted to bring with him, formerly of Philly, is going to be in the Christian Parker role in Philly. Sean Duggan headed to Miami with Jeff Hafley. Ryan Downard headed to Miami with Jeff Hafley. The Packers are going to need a new DBs coach. They're going to need a new linebackers coach. The clear favorite is someone like Nick Rallis, who we're going to talk about with Alex Clancy in a second, the defensive coordinator in Arizona, and was the linebackers coach in Philadelphia. So this just feels like a 1-for-1. Like you're getting Rallis and Gannon, and that's a potential upgrade for this staff. I mean, the linebackers coach at least. Like I have not been impressed by the development of Sean Duggan of these linebackers. But Duggan and Hafley go way back. There is buddy ball with all of this. Rallis is not just seen as a defensive coordinator. He is seen as a potential future head coach. Not unlike Anthony Campanile, who Jeff Hafley brought originally, got looks as a head coach after just 1 year in Jacksonville. So it's not just about who you hire. It's about who you hire and their ability to bring in the right guys. When you're the guy in charge, you have to be able to manage down and not without micromanaging, right? But have those guys be able to put together the staff too. And Matt LaFleur has a hand in all of that. So if you want to maintain success and you got to deal with brain drain, which if you're a successful organization, you're going to have to deal with, you have to show the ability to backfill that talent. And for the second time in a row, when there's a major change that this staff has had to undergo, Matt LaFleur has engaged in very good process to make that happen. Now, what of Jonathan Gannon? What is his deal? Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals joins us next to talk about it. Being in an NFL game is awesome. You only got one more chance at that. Being in an NBA game is different, but also incredibly special because it's more intimate. It's often louder. There's an energy. There's a feeling you get being there that is different. Getting tickets, though, should be easy, and it hasn't always been. Game Time has endeavored to change that, to become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Zone deals allow you to choose a section. Game Time picks the seats, and you save. Plus, you get to see upfront pricing. No hidden fees, no surprise at checkout. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season is officially coming to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is just the game everyone's been waiting for. The perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joining me now for the second time in a couple months here, Alex Clancy, the rare double dip from you and I, Alex, Locked On Cardinals host. I thought, who better to talk about Jonathan Gannon than the man who's been covering Jonathan Gannon since he arrived in Arizona, who also had the pleasure of experiencing the Cliff Kingsbury era in Arizona. I know that was one that was particularly special for you, Alex.
So fun.
Let's go back in time to when Jonathan Gannon gets hired in Arizona. Illegally, by the way. They got knocked for tampering in all of that. Do you remember what your response at the time to the hiring was?
I wish it was Shane Steichen. That was the first thing that I thought. And then, so the introductory press conference couldn't have gone worse than what Cliff's was. He pretty much deferred everything to Steve Keim. So immediately the vibe was different. He answered questions earnestly. He asked people's names. He was very like, I'm ready to be a head coach. And you could tell kind of if people are politicking or if they're just genuine and they're like, I'm ready for this kind of thing. And he was definitely the latter. And then the fire in your gut thing happened, getting on the bus. And it's like, oh God. And then the whole hand movement thing when he was meeting Rondale Moore was weird. It was just like this weird, but I always defended him like, well, Mike McDaniel's a weirdo. It's like, nobody gives him crap for it. So, but then practice, first regular season game against Washington, everything was different. Everything was different than what it was from Cliff. They were ready. They didn't have a quarterback. Josh Dobbs had been there 2 weeks and he was starting week one. It's like, you knew there was a meteoric shift in culture from Cliff Kingsbury to Jonathan Gannon almost immediately.
Wow. So then what happened? Like, what did your feelings evolve? Like, that first season happens, you learn a little bit more about him, the game management. Like, how did your opinion of him evolve over time?
So it went from, you get a free pass, green ribbon for the entirety of the first year. Kyler Murray comes back midway through. They win some games. They win a high scoring game in Philly. Like, it's like, oh, there's a little juice here where, Kyler was spry, even though he was still, just off his ACL tear and everything. 2024 was the big one. It's like, okay, they're leading the division going into the bye. I think they were 5-3 going into the bye week. Then they get punished in the Pacific Northwest against Seattle, and everything falls apart. It's like, well, what's different here? You can't just say, oh, it's the Arizona Cardinals. Everything's going to be the same always, when it usually is. But for me, JG wasn't great when great coaches needed to be great, which was timeout calls. It wasn't even like play calling, because he's not calling plays. I mean, he was CEO in this thing, but it's like going forward on fourth down at times, punting a lot. It was just like, defensive-minded head coaches can get away with it if they're really good head coaches by being more passive, being more you're going to punt, instead of going forward on 4th and 3 when all the analytics say go. And he just wasn't good at all during the second half of that second season. It was his first time as a head coach. So it was like, okay, well, do you chalk it up to that? Then this offseason involves like, okay, this is the year. This is the year. My thing was, I'd much rather put money on the fact that he wins coach of the year and they win 11 games, or, they win 3 games and he get fired. The former, I was taking the entire offseason because they made concrete steps roster-wise to make it as so. And then that didn't happen. And then now here we are where we are. I don't think 2025 was nearly as much his fault as people are saying it was.
So what was the reason that the team did not perform to where they wanted to get to?
Well, they were giving up 19 points a game on defense during the first 5 weeks, and they were 2-3. So there's a couple things that happened. One, the Cardinals during their 3 losses, all had a chance to end the game in victory formation with the ball under 4 minutes, 2 or 3 first downs, and the game's over. That's what good teams do. They didn't do that for any of them. They lose to Tennessee after being up 21-3 with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. They don't score a point again. This is where it's like, okay, is he losing the team? That's the question. That's a generic thing. I don't think he ever lost a team. I think dropping like flies injury-wise and not being good enough coaches as a whole, because none of these guys had done their specific roles before. Nick Rawls never been a DC. Drew Petzing had never been an OC. They're like, all right, kiddos, go have fun. No safety net. And you started to see it come to a head.
Adams became a huge part of what Dallas was doing in the run game, especially.
Yeah. It was just everything that could have gone wrong did, and then everybody got injured on top of that.
So, okay, one of the things that impressed me last year about the Cardinals, and by the way, I was very impressed with them in the game that they played against Green Bay, a game that when you and I were talking about it, we were like sort of laughing about the path to victory. Like we had to spend that whole last segment talking about nonsense because we were like, yeah, no, the Packers should win. And then the Cardinals, like really by rights, should have won that game. Is they evolved that defense. They changed what they were doing. They ran some funky college stuff and some 3 high, which is like not a thing in the NFL.
Yeah.
They tried some stuff. You can't say they didn't. They moved Zaven Collins because he was in, a position where he was not playing well. To me, coaches fail because they get so tunnel vision in what they're looking at and this is what we do. And the combination of, I don't know how much was Jonathan Gannon and how much was Nick Rawls, but they did not get stuck in that. And that is something to me, that there is something there that says we're not so arrogant that we believe we can just keep doing what we've been doing and it'll get better.
Yeah, that's right. So numbers wise, because I know you're a big numbers nerd.
Yep.
They were top 5 or bottom 5, you want to look at this way, in base sets this year out of any team in the NFL. I think they were 3rd. They showed different looks. Even during his introductory press comments, they're like, we kind of have a base defense, but it's really predicated upon the opposing team's offense. I mean, at one point they had 4, if not 5 safeties on the field. A couple dropped in the backer role. And, without Garrett Williams, their lead, I know he's a slot corner, but he's their best corner. He got hurt early in the season. He was on IR. They had to get creative. Will Johnson, rookie, corner, even though he was a standout at Michigan, he's still a rookie. It's like they got the opposite of boring is what the defense will be. The opposite of boring is what it will be. And he wasn't playing the calls Nick Rawls was, and Nick Rawls had murmurs about getting head coaching looks at the end of 2024 after that year. So this is, to me, and it sounds, because, Peter, we know this, that like losing mentality is blaming refs, blaming injuries, blaming things that are completely out of your control, until it becomes part of the plot with injuries where they had the most players on IR, most games missed, all of this stuff, and key positions, really important guys outside of Trey McBride. And I think that was the death knell, but the process there works. They just weren't able to execute it at a level necessary to win. I mean, they lost all their 1-score games. They weren't blown out until after their bye week where they giving up 40 burgers every game.
And that was at a point where the injuries had just reached critical mass. Like if you look at their splits, I think it's weeks 1 through 9, they're like a top 8 defense. And then 10 through 18, they're like a bottom 5 defense. And it's because the bottom fell out. Like they just lost all their good players such that, and they didn't have that many to begin with, right? Like that's part of the thing here on defense. Like offense, you can scheme. Defense, you got to have players. And they just like, especially the second half of that season, you watch them and you go, who's that? What's happening?
Yeah. It was tough. Plus, you're playing the NFC West. You've got the Seahawks and the Rams.
And the Niners.
You got the 40. You got the 40. You got the Rams twice after the bye week. You have the Seahawks and the Rams. Seahawks and the Niners. 2 out of the first 5 weeks after the bye week. It's like there was no. Oh, and then the other thing is like, which is kind of counterintuitive, but they had no run game. So with no James Conner, no Trey Benson after week 4, you have to throw the ball 50 times. You're getting more 3 and outs, and then you're giving the defense less time to rest. Like, remember, people, they're human beings. They get tired. Doesn't matter how good of a defense it is. If your offense can't sustain drives and it's a run first offense, you don't have running backs. It's the domino effect, which yields 40 burgers being given up.
If I saw at least one person on social, someone who used to work for the Eagles, say if Jonathan Gannon brings Nick Rawlis with him to Green Bay, he would like the hire even more. What would if that's true, what would be the reason?
Nick Rawlis is going to be a head coach in this league, I think. Like he's 34, I think. He's got the you're insane mindset, but in a good way. It's in a good way. It's like I called him the evil genius. When you're putting 5 safeties on the damn field, Peter, out of 11 players, what are we doing? But it's like it was survival mode, and they were giving up 19 points a game, even with Garrett Williams out. It's like he is an extension of Jonathan Gannon. And I think that they may do this again somewhere else if he were to get a head coaching role and run it back. This was more the Arizona Cardinals dysfunction and the injuries more than anything else. I think JG is going to fit in swimmingly with the stable organization like the Packers.
More with Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals after this.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now's the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just football action all through the games. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. Pick 2 or more players and choose more or less on their stat projections. It's a great way to keep playing fantasy football even after season-long leagues are long over. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Well, I was going to ask you about that because some guys are just better as coordinators. But based on some of the conversations I had, that was not the feeling I got from people. They were like, if he gets another chance, I think he will succeed. It's part of it is the institutional uncertainty that comes with the Cardinals. And we're seeing that now. Like they're down to like candidate 56 on their head coaching search right now, trying to figure out what they're going to do there. They're trying to get the other LaFleur in town right now. And so that seems like that's part of that. Like, would you say that could be in the cards? Like Jonathan Gannon could also get another out. Like if he has 2 or 3 good years in Green Bay, could you see him convincing an owner to say, let's give this guy another shot?
Yeah, I do. I mean, to the Cardinals credit, I guess this is the toughest this division has ever been.
Yeah.
Like this is,
and it's just not, it's been tough.
It's been tough. And on top of that, like even in the NFC North, like until recently with Detroit, where they've made this turn that the Cardinals need to make, or they're going to, be cast off into oblivion, is like, it's not only that the teams are good, those are 3 of the most stable organizations in football also. So even if they're not good for a couple years, they're going to be good again. There is not another division in football, and I went through it, that has that strong of ownership of 3 teams. Like even with the Bears, who've been bad forever, the Lions have been bad forever, it was the Vikings and the Packers who were stable. And things obviously shift and morph and things like that. But there's never been this much of a drop-off between the Cardinals and everybody else. So, yeah, JG wasn't great. I do think he will get another head coaching job. I think that the biggest issue was, first of all, they let him pick his staff. I don't think they should have done that. You bring in, like, even Sean McVay needed Wade Phillips. Yeah. Like, Brandon Staley, you need that, that old head to come and be like, this is what the NFL is like from a coaching perspective. And they didn't have any of that, which was, lunacy. It looks at, if you're looking back at it.
How are Cardinals fans going to feel if Drew Petzing goes to Detroit and Jonathan Gannon goes to Green Bay and those teams like are meeting in the NFC Championship game next year?
I mean, it's Drew Petzing is the big one. Drew Petzing, because he was the one who was given the scarlet letter this year. It's like, okay, you're going to be the fall guy. And I saw it before the season started. Even with Kyler Murray out and no run game, they were blaming him. I was like, if you want to run it back one more year with these three guys, they were out of contract at this point, so it would have been weird. But it's like, hypothetically speaking, I would have been okay with running it back with all three of the guys, all three of the coaches, because of the Travis Shem mockery that was last year and who's going to be up for head coaching opportunities this year. It's like the quarterback class. Like, everybody's excited about, you're going to get a Liam Cohen and a Mike McDonald out of this group, but you're putting nailing the tail on the donkey here. We have no idea who's going to be good. So I don't know, man. I would have run it back, and it's going to be, something the Cardinals be like, of course they go somewhere else and succeed. That's to answer your question.
It seems crazy to me that for a coach that for 3 years never had a quarterback be healthy, that you could just say, well, this is your fault. Like, that's the part of it that kind of blows my mind. Where it's like, could you as ownership and front office people, could you like figure out the quarterback position a little bit? And I know they paid Kyler Murray, but then he's hurt. So how do you blame a coach for that? Now I know they kind of was it a hard benching? Was it a soft benching? Like, that seems relevant too. Like, I was going to ask you about that part of it, because they basically decided we'd rather Jacoby Brissett play than Kyler Murray, and that didn't work out. And when you take a gamble like that, you're basically thumbing your nose at the powers that be, saying, we think you guys screwed this up.
Yeah. First, Kyler was healthy in 2024 all year, and they went 8-9. Like, they should have won 12 games in 2024. If that was Matt LaFleur, they would have won 12 games. Now, that's not necessarily fair because he's an offensive guy. The offense would have looked different. Like, the thing with Kyler Murray is they knew who the quarterback was when they joined. They knew they were going to get a free year in 2023. 2024 was going to be the year that it was going to be that first 0-1 jump, and 2025 was when they were going to make the playoffs. That was the plan. Okay. Kyler Murray, it's when you see the offense with him during the first 5 games. I've been a Kyler guy. I've been since day one. I'm like, you know what? It's because of Cliff, whatever it is. And then you see Jacoby Brissett in Indy and then in Green Bay in week 7. It's like, what? This is what the offense could look like even without a run game. The only reason the Cardinals lost to Green Bay was because they put me in the backfield for the tush push on 4th and 1 after getting obliterated by the interior defensive line the entire game from the Packers. Like, those are the kind of things that make me think, why are you a head coach? Those kind of situational play calling things and Drew Petzing, like the idiocy that comes along with those plays specifically, that's why it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. I don't know if it was, I think it's just Arizona Cardinals. Why was it happening? Arizona, doesn't matter. That's just what it is now. And dude, we've been doing this a long time, man. I don't know why I'm still surprised. I always err on the side of positivity, of course, because there's concrete things that are better. Even Kyler Murray, it's like, this is the best chance in his 7 years. This is it. And he gets hurt.
It's a different version. You're going to play the world's smallest violin for Packer fans, but like, there is the same thing of like, for the last 15 years, the same story. Now, heartbreak in January feels different than, your season being over in November. I understand that, but like, it is very much like Packer fans have stopped being surprised that this is the way that this works. When the Packers blew it to the Bears, I said, this is unbelievable. And I got hundreds of responses that were like, no, it's not. This is the most believable thing ever. Sports fans are sort of conditioned for that cynicism. Last thing I want to ask you about, Alex,
yeah.
You're going to be like, I can't believe you're asking me about this. It seems like Rich Bisaccia is safe in Green Bay as we sit here and record this on a Monday afternoon. But I was looking at it and I was like, okay, who could Jonathan Gannon bring with him from that Arizona staff? And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, Jeff Rodgers has coached some very good special teams units. And I know they weren't as good this last season, but that could be interesting. Like, he could say, hey, Matt, if Rich Bisaccia is going to say, let's say retire, why don't you get my guy Jeff in here, who I believe his contract is up? Could that be something that Packer fans should be thinking about?
what they should be thinking about is Jeff Rodgers would be a great addition to any coaching staff. And it's a lot of it is, and you don't need it necessarily in Green Bay as much because, you know, there's some veteran nature there. He was like the elder statesman of this group. I mean, Clayton Adams to a certain degree, but like, yeah, like the Cardinals special teams suffered this year because punter Blake Gillikin went on IR in the first 6 weeks and Chad Ryland turned into a pumpkin. So it's, you know, it's not an original story. The punter, Blake Gillikin, is one of the better young punters in the league. And when you lose him and you need field position more than anything, and that's not happening, that's not an indictment on Jeff Rodgers. They had a couple really bad penalties on special teams this year, but by and large, his body of work is a positive one.
All right. Who do you want to be the next coach of the Arizona Cardinals?
You, Peter.
They can't afford
for me, it's tough, man. Like the Mike LaFleur stuff fascinates me because it's like, he ain't ever called plays successfully in this league. So you want him to be a head coach without Kyle Shanahan and without Sean McVay calling the plays? You want Jets, Cardinals, like, and be a head coach of a team? Like, I can't get behind that. For me, you know, I think Clint Kubiak at this point, but still, a first-time head coach calling the plays too just terrifies me.
Not in on former Cardinals great Vance Joseph?
What do you think? I think Vance. Well, I think Vance, out of all of the coordinators who were up for jobs, even including Clint Kubiak, he made the best case, even though they've got an incredible defense. I'm talking about just the first half against the Patriots. Outside of Jared Stidham doing what I would have done if I took one snap in football, run back 20 yards and, you know,
throw it backward.
Yeah, throw it backwards. Like, outside of that, Vance Joseph called it a masterful first half. So if that's what we're going to go on, then you can turn the Cardinals defense into that, I'd be signed up for that.
It sounds like Raheem Morris is still in the mix there a little bit. That's why he's not a defensive coordinator somewhere else. Like, that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
I guess. I mean, I think what they're looking for the ticket is Mike LaFleur and Raheem Morris is DC. Raheem Morris hasn't ever coached a top 15 defense, I don't think. I think that's the number. It's like, what are we doing here, guys?
Well, in 2021, the Rams were, I think, third in DVOA, if you care about advanced metrics, but I don't know what the traditional metrics said.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, the Arizona Cardinals, if they're going to hire a first-time head coach, need to bring in a veteran coordinator to kind of be the anchor, be the Wade Phillips to the Sean McVay, even though Wade Phillips is an all-timer. The Cardinals are going to get somebody like that.
All right, Alex. Well, this was enlightening. I appreciate your time. You were the first person I thought to call when I saw the news. In fact, I texted you, right? We have the receipts. I texted you right away. I think I texted you before it was done. I said, hey, if they hire Jonathan Gannon, can we do this? So I'm glad we were able to make it work. Thank you so much, and enjoy whoever is the next head coach. And listen, I just got almost 20 inches of snow in my backyard from last night. So I don't feel sorry about your sports teams.
I almost had to put pants on today, Peter. I almost couldn't wear shorts.
All right, we got to go. Alex, talk to you later. Thanks to Alex for joining the show. Always great to talk with him. Could be more Cardinals news. So that's why I'm glad we got that Nick Rallis conversation in there. A lot of good stuff on Jonathan Gannon in there as well. Thanks for tuning into Locked On Packers. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to me on the social medias. Subscribe on YouTube. We got a squad show coming tonight, a squad show coming on Thursday of this week. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Locked On Packers comes in ad-free on all your major podcast platforms, and you get access to the group chat, a members-only invite Discord server situation where it's been popping off in the group chat. We've been having a blast in there. So lockedonpackers.supercasts.com is the link. Go in the show notes if you just want to make it easy for yourself. For those of you on video, we send you now to the first ever 24/7 national NFL YouTube channel. On audio, make your second listen Locked On NFL or the Locked On Packers Squad Show so you can stay Locked On Packers.